Before we get started with this episode, we've got something that we're really excited to tell you about. It's something near and dear to our hearts, and it's film because we love watching film and we love talking about film, and we sympathize with those of you out there who think you may have watched everything on Netflix, you watched everything on Prime. You haven't, but there's so much out there to enjoy, and there is a great streaming service that we do have to recommend to you called Film Movement Plus. And you could set filmmovementplus.com, very obviously, and it really has a unique and diverse selection of not just world cinema, but documentary, some old classics as well. There is some really great stuff over there that I cannot recommend enough. And I mean, they rotate their stuff in and out every month, and there is a movie that's hitting their service. Well, it's hit their service. It is on there right now, and it's one of our personal favorites in the past couple of years. It is called The Third Murder from director Hirozaku Koreeda, and who those of you who don't know who Koreeda is, he's directed films like Shoplifters, like Father Like Son, After the Storm, which are all really fantastic sort of humanistic dramas. But here he has a little bit of a change of pace, and we get like a procedural, we get a crime story, and it follows this jaded defense attorney who takes on the case of a murder robbery suspect, but things go a little things go a little shifty because he eventually learns that this man served jail time for another murder even 30 years ago, and even though his chances of winning the case are low, and his client admits the guilt, there is sort of the death penalty is ligging over there, and it creates a lot of problems for him. But the more he digs into the case, and the more he hears about sort of the victim's family and about the guy who did the robbery, things are not necessarily what they seem, and he begins to doubt if the man he's trying to defend for murder is even a murderer after all, and it's a fantastic piece of cinema. I don't think I was doing it enough credit right there, but Koreeda is one of the absolute best filmmakers coming out of Japan these days. And if you want to do yourself a favor and catch up on some fantastic modern Japanese cinema, I cannot recommend that film enough. And it is because it is one of the best ones that's basically out there today. I mean, he really is a master of the modern moving image, and well, we can't talk about him enough. He's just one of those fantastic filmmakers. And there's another fantastic filmmaker uh, with who's having a film jump on the service, and it's director John Scheinfeld, who we recently talked to actually about his Sergio Mendes film, but his film, Who is Harry Nielsen and Why is Everybody Talking About Him, is hitting Film Movement Plus on Harry Nielsen's birthday on June 15th. And it's, again, if you're a fan of the Rock Doc, this is definitely going to be one for you that I do recommend you check out. But there are these films, and there is so very much more that, I could babble on for quite some time. And, well, you've heard me babble on, but like I said, there's great music docs, there's great foreign film. There's some classic stuff too. It really is for the cinema lover, probably the premier streaming service out there that you may not necessarily know about. I like to think of it as maybe the best kept secret, but I'm hoping that it's not going to be a secret much longer because it is a truly fantastic service which we cannot recommend enough. And because, you're such loyal listeners of In the Seats With, and we know that you love film because you're listening to us right now. You can sign up for Film Movement Plus over at filmmovementplus.com for a mere $5.99 a month, which, let's face it, it's the price of a Starbucks coffee, which most of us aren't getting every morning now anyway. So would you rather have sort of the love of cinema washing over your life, or would you rather have that extra coffee? I know I'd rather have the cinema, to be perfectly frank. But you can do that, and you can, when you sign up at Film Movement Plus at filmmovementplus.com, you get a free month, a free 30-day trial. But also, if you sign up using the promo code SEATS, you will get an extra 3 months at 50% off, and that is just a steal. So I would recommend right now, if you love film, if you love cinema in general, go to filmmovementplus.com and sign up for Film Movement Plus, and don't forget to use the promo code SEATS for your extra discount. And on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's so terribly important that filmmakers have the freedom to be able to tell the stories that they want to tell. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with, once more, as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And between you and me, if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming you do because you're listening to the podcast right now, you can subscribe to the podcast. We'd love it if you did. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so you can give us a like and subscribe over there as well. That would be great. We're also on the social media, as the kids call it. You can find us either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates on Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagram, as the kids call it. We're also on TikTok, too, at In the Seats, if you want to have a little bit of fun as well. And we'd love it if you'd follow us there. But I think the most important thing, at the end of the day, you got to come visit us where it all began. You got to visit us over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large, because that's what we love to talk about, and we love it when you come and read about it. That's the job. It's what we do, and we don't get paid enough for it. But that's another story entirely. We love it, and we'd love to be able to tell you what to check out on whatever platform that you prefer. And here's the thing, on this one, we've got a real interesting film. We are talking with Sundance winning director Alexandre Rockwell, and we are talking about his new film, Sweet Thing, which opens at the IFC Center in New York and other virtual cinema outlets. It's played Tribeca as well. It's the second of Alexandre Rockwell's films that are featuring his kids, Lana and Nico, from the first effort, the 2013 film Little Feat, and this film also includes his wife Karen Parsons, who you may know from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But Sweet Thing is it's a real interesting film. It's got some poetic moments. It's basically a celebration of childhood in one way or another, and it's one of those things that couldn't get made inside a standard studio system. You got to do it outside the box, and it's a stunning, beautiful film that I cannot talk enough about. It's got Will Patton in it too, and it really looks at it pulls sort of so many positive things out of a childhood that can be sort of impoverished and sort of be lacking in a lot of areas. And Rockwell goes into this, and he goes into so much more, and he really gives it all a little bit of hope. Even though some horrible things happen, there is actually a little bit of sort of honest and stunning, genuine hope in this film that I think is an important thing to see, and is a beautiful thing to see up on the screen. And we talk with Alexandre about that, and so very, very much more. It's a fun one. I can't stress that enough. It's really, really a beautiful film that I do recommend you check out. But first, check out our talk with Alexandre as we talk about the making of the film, sort of the meat grinder that is Hollywood, and so very much more as we see films like this and we wonder about the future in film itself. But enjoy our talk with Alexandre Rockwell, because I certainly know that I did. Now, I mean, obviously, first off, just congratulations on the film. Like, I absolutely adored it. It's fantastic. Now, I mean, I guess my first question for you is, why now? Like, this almost felt like a bit of a companion piece to your last film with your kids, Was that sort of the intent, or was like, where did the idea for this film come from?
It's that's a good lead off question. If you and I could hang out and have a few beers and maybe some heroin and a little bit of crack,
Well, I can go get a beer downstairs, but other than
that,
that,
like we could really get into this one. But it's been a genesis, really. Like I went through a period when I went to Los Angeles and I tried to get some films made, and I made one out there that was just so hard. It's so hard to kind of put a cast together, and kind of all what I loved about making films was kind of getting sucked out of me a little bit with all the kind of strange meetings with people you don't really want to even share an Uber ride with, who might give you money to make a film, and so I just got really burned out on that. And then I just said, what is, I went broke, just sitting with two little kids. And I said, what do I love to do? And, I want to make a black and white film on 16 millimeter. I don't care if anybody sees it. I just want to get back to the creative aspect of it, and just kind of, I guess always the right impulse to do something with, because I loved it. And the people who came to it were amateurs, but people, I'd meet a waiter in a restaurant and say, hey, he'd say, what are you working on? I said, I'm writing a script. I said, oh, that's cool. I'm an actor. I said, do you want to take sound on my movie? And next thing you know, he's doing the sound. And it was kind of like Cassavetes school of just everyone coming together and getting in trouble together. And that was just, it reminded me of what I love about filmmaking. The kind of, not just what I love about filmmaking, but what I think makes filmmaking unique is this kind of like the fact that you're capturing lightning in a bottle, or you're capturing something that can never be seen again, and you're hunting these weird butterflies, and I think part of it is you do it with people who, the problem is the machine of filmmaking is so overwhelming with the production and the money and the movie stars that you start to lose sight of this is actually about capturing kind of delicate little moments, right? And so that was a great success. Then I made that film. For me, it was a success personally. It actually did fairly well, showed in Toronto and went around the world, got some awards, and was actually better reviewed than some films I'd done where I had to kind of like look the other way while people, sodomized me, and I'm sorry if that's inappropriate on whatever we're doing here, but
it's Hollywood, it's accurate.
You know what I'm talking about? So, and Harvey Weinstein was one of them.
There we go.
There we go. Everyone can get behind that bandwagon, right? But so I just, this film, I teach NYU grad film and I love a lot of my students, and I love the way they explore the art with me, and we kind of share what we love about it. And I thought I'd bring some of them together. I'd get the kids again, because it was kind of scary because I didn't know if they'd be able to be up to it. I didn't want to put that on Lana, have like another situation with like, Sofia Coppola or something.
Right.
Not that it would be that big a deal, but still, I'm a parent, but she was just amazing. And Will Patton, oh my God. I mean, this guy lived in a sleeping bag in a car half the shoot. I mean, the guy is just like, he's my age, and he's just like, he wants to do good work, Yeah. And he just came in and did it, and Karen was in it, and we kind of worked some miracles in that film, and it was very much, again, that same feeling of like capturing, something that was like hunting butterflies. And so that's the genesis of it. And I love making films like that. I don't even know if I could go back to making bigger budget films now. I'd like to have a little more. I'd like to be able to survive.
Right.
And pay a few good actors and, pay some crew people who work on a film. Like I'd like to pay people, but other than paying people, I just love being down and dirty and kind of like finding these nooks and crannies that you can't go in with a big machine. You can't go in with a big army. You have to go in with a subtle little group of combat, guerrilla warfare, kind of thing.
How does the process change for you when, like, because I mean, something like this, it's essentially a family project, be it your students or be it your actual family. Like, does the process change at all?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's extremely personal. Like Jabari, who we found, I found him in a skate park. He's the kid who plays, Malik, the kind of wayward kid who kind of runs away with them. I found him in a skate park. He came and lived with us, and Jabari's a wild kid. I mean, like setting things on fire, but I mean, I love him to death, but he just, I'll never forget when he first showed up where we were shooting. He'd never been in grass. He never walked in grass barefoot before. And he took off his shoes and he was running around the yard just like going, oh my God, it pricks your feet. It's like attacking my feet. And it was just so we were dealing with like, sort of a very intimate family kind of relationship where people would have like, crying fits. Jabari tried to run away at one point, and my students are all having like, breakups and, college student affairs. And, but what was wonderful, it was like kind of like a big meal. You sit down at a table with your family, and I don't know what kind of family, you may be in, but instead of saying, oh, would you kindly pass the potatoes? You say, hey, pass the potatoes. And then someone says, hey, I want more potatoes. But there's this kind of friction that happens, but it's very natural to the creative process. And I love working in that environment where I don't have to always watch how I say it. I can, I don't offend someone if I grab the camera, I'd shoot things myself. It's we're like at a big table together and we're just eating and having a feast, and I love that feeling.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, because I always imagine the sort of the difficulty of the dynamics of, if one of your actors who happens to be one of your children wants to go off script or has a line idea and you're like, nope, stick to the script. Like it's those things that kind of make me laugh, to be perfectly honest.
No, I wish you could have been there. You would have seen some funny moments. I mean, actually, oddly enough, Little Feat was where it was tougher because, Lana in this film had to hold it together. She was like the mother of the kids. Like she's really had her shit together, so she'd know all the lines. And if someone had a problem, like Jabari was a wild, I have to feed lines to him and just say, my one rule, Jabari, is don't look at the camera. Then he'd look at the camera and say, Jabari, just don't look at the camera. I'm going to tell you the line and just look at Lana, and he's amazing, but you have to do that with him. And Nico is a little pro as well. Like Nico just does his thing, one take. And actually, I realized that Little Feat was like a training ground for them, that somehow having done it once when they were little, they got the professional thing. They got they were great team players, and it was, scary. It was risky, but, both of them are really, really pros, but you're right. There were moments where, it gets a little personal where, dad's asking you to do something. And, I think the fact that there are all these other people around kind of shamed them into doing it instead of fighting with me. But, it was challenging, but fun.
Why black and white?
Now that's good. That's an interesting question. Okay. I can tell you practically speak. Okay. There's a few reasons. One, I love black and white.
Yeah.
Okay? That's almost good enough. Right. But okay, let's move on from that. But when you're making a low budget movie,
yeah,
probably my favorite all-time low budget movies, whether it was Shadows, Cassavetes or Killer of Sheep, Charles Burnett, or even In the Soup or Jim Jarmusch's early work, Robert Frank's stuff. I love black and white. Now, when you do low budget black and white, it looks good. It just looks good. Black and white is beautiful. Okay. Now, when you do low budget color, especially digital color, you have to control it or it's just going to look like shit. It's going to look like shit. And so many low budget films are shot digitally in color. And I can't even watch 10 minutes of them. I'm such a crafts, I'm almost too much obsessed with like the craft of film that when I look at a shitty movie, movie might be good, but if they shoot it on digital color with no money, I have a hard time watching it. I just think it looks ugly. It looks like vomit. It's hard for me to look at it. So then that's one thing. So low budget works well with black and white. And then lastly, it always interests me because, if you look at like still photographs, we look at still photographs and we never wonder why is it in black and white, like color photography, there's an art to color photography, but Eggleston and people like that and others, they use the color and they can control it somehow. Whereas if you can't control color, black and white is accepted in still photography, but in film, it's really been faded out. I think mostly because of commercialism and that it's a very valid. It's beautiful. It's beautiful like a color, like a black and white photograph. Like, why not?
Yeah.
But I know it dates it. I know it brings up a nostalgic feeling for people. And that's okay with me because in a weird way, this movie has a timeless quality to it.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So, that's okay with me in a way. Like I kind of wanted that,
No, very much so because obviously it's set more or less present day, there is a timelessness to sort of the themes and the arc of it all.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm kind of curious, like for you, because, and I mean, I look at the film industry as a whole these days, and I mean, and like you've said, you've been through the meat grinder more than once. I'm
Yeah.
sure you could tell me some horror stories, but
Yeah.
on the flip side of it, I look at the amount of films that are being made right now and the amount of avenues that there are for people to get films out there, and I'm kind of curious from your perspective, how has sort of the process of just like trying to get the art out there changed? Because I mean, when watching your film, like you wouldn't be able to get $1 for this 20 years ago,
Yeah.
but now you can get $1 for it because there's at least there's avenues for at least sort of the cream of something like this to rise to the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because before there wasn't those avenues, it was either theatrical or you would have
That's
your
interesting.
VHS on the
Yeah,
shelf somewhere, and that'd be it.
that's interesting. Hold on just for a second. I just got to count the change. I think it's 98 cents. We haven't quite made $1 yet. Maybe after this show, we'll make 2 more cents. But no, honestly, like, okay, so that is interesting. And I really love that attitude because everyone's so doom and gloom about independent film. But yes, the Harvey Weinstein, Miramax independent film days and all that, which I had was a mixed bag. Maybe it is doom and gloom. But I do think that the only thing I worry about is quality. Like if there are many more films that are being made, but not many really good ones, you know? And I do think that the good news is where there is an audience, there will be a will and a way. And I think it's sort of trying to figure its way out. And like you said, there are more venues, there are more ways to get this done. So you're right. Like 10 years ago, it was impossible. I mean, I just kind of am stubborn. Like I don't really think, the weird thing is as I get older, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And I finally come to that. I wish I could have known that like 30 years ago, but I just kind of said to myself, you know what? Who knows, man? Life is short. Time's running out on the sand in the hourglass. Like I can actually see. I'm not that I'm like going to die tomorrow, but I can actually see the curve. I actually now see the curve. I don't. Before it was always a rise, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do. Like I don't know how. Like it's impossible. Like, how do I find money to make a film? Well, there's Kickstarter helped me. I actually on this film I got an insurance claim that I used, to start the film with, and I just kind of like. I'm determined unless someone's going to give me money for the right reasons to make my films, then I'm just going to do what I got to do, even if I don't make another film, because I have to make films a certain way now, or I can't do it. Like I won't compromise on certain things. I just won't do it anymore. Like I might have when I was younger, I just won't do it anymore. I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
I mean,
it does. It does, because I mean, I even look at I mean, especially when you look at sort of the Hollywood system right now, and even if you look at somebody like a Tarantino who says, I'm going to walk away after the next one, everyone's in shock and awe, but it's like, no, I believe him. I get it. Like I can see that, but I'm kind of curious because just going back to your point about just sort of having to do what you want to do and the freedom to make what you want to make, I'm kind of curious, how have sort of the jumps in technology over the past like 15, 20 years sort of opened up that avenue to go, what, maybe I can make it my way.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think it's more of a mindset, honestly. I think it's, technology, definitely. I mean, certainly the post-production technology. I mean, no one talks about that, but like I mix my own films at home. I edit them. I do the post work. I do the effects. I do everything. So the post stuff is amazing. That saves you tons right off the bat. But, it's mostly a mindset. I think the fact that it is more accessible to people technically actually helps me and others kind of go, well, it's not impossible. Like I actually shot this in super 16 millimeter. A lot of people say, if you want to make a low budget movie, are you out of your mind? Why would you shoot it in super 16? I love super 16, but honestly, you can find cameras now for almost nothing because digital is taken over. So you can go get a super 16 camera for like 1/10 the price that you used to be able to rent them by.
Yeah.
So you can bring that old technology, and actually people get excited by shooting on film. Like there are laboratories that cut you breaks. Kodak gave us a bunch of film because they want to encourage that kind of thing. So I think that the answer to your question is that it's easier to make films now. The question is it easier to make good films now? And that's the challenge. Like you don't want to just make films where people follow actors around in kind of a hybrid documentary. Well, I mean, some of those are okay, but that's really easy to do. but the craft of filmmaking, I hope that young people realize there's an actual craft to it, and that you will actually learn to make good films too. There's a medium here that is really, really spectacular. Like cinema is just this incredible thing. Like you go into that dark room and the lights go down, and hopefully you get taken somewhere. And there's a craft to doing it, just like music, it's an emotional art form.
Now, I'm kind of curious from your perspective, how does the future of the medium look? Because I mean, I always wonder, just in terms of people's education and people's willingness to watch, because and I mean, and I hate to use the word content because it's such a dirty word, but we're getting inundated with so much stuff to quote unquote watch.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the right stuff to watch. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
for you as an educator, how do you see sort of people who want to make films? Do they know enough about films? Because it always, like from my perspective, if you want to know how to make a film, you have to watch a lot of films at the very least.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's no better school in this world than previous filmmakers. No, we're definitely in a strange time. Well, we're in a strange time for so many reasons, right? I mean, like every reason, we're in an odd time. We're reevaluating Western culture on some, social political level. But film has kind of gotten caught up in that, because the masters, like the Kubricks and the Hitchcocks, like I teach at grad film, and people are rejecting the canon or whatever of filmmakers, the Cassavetes, the Hitchcocks, the guys that, the Buñuels, even the Kurosawas, and I think, and Fellini's, that's like a real problem. Like my students haven't seen La Strada, or my students, I'm talking about grad film.
Yeah.
NYU. We're not talking about some, some like obscure little film school. Like this is supposed to be one of the best. And I'm shocked. I'm like, you mean you don't know, they don't know anything pre 1995 or something, and I think that's a shame. But a part of that is that there's just a plethora of information on the internet, and your focus, like going into a movie theater, like I used to when I was obviously young, I go see double bills at the Thalia or the Bleecker Street, or when I was in Paris, the Cinematheque. Like I just go in and I just immerse myself in films. And I don't even know if I would be able to sit through a Tarkovsky or a Mizoguchi film now. Like, I just think, like to watch a 2.5 hour movie that moves slowly, which has like Ozu or something, it's got so much value, but our society now is so quick. It's so like distracted. I think those are challenges, definite challenges. But I do think that my feeling is that there's always a need to have narrative storytelling, that storytelling is in our DNA. And whether it was around fires back in, like in prehistoric times or cave paintings, that storytelling through a visual medium has always been part of our history. And I think we have something there's nothing more pleasurable than sitting in a room and being taken away.
Yeah.
Without having like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to answer the phone, watching a movie while you're watching something on your laptop. And I think just to say one last thing on that is that, like my son, like, he wants to play video games. So he plays video games for 4 hours. I have to pull him off him. I have to take it away or whatever. And he resists. But then I'll take a walk with him on the beach or something. And he goes, Dad, that was so great. So it's like a weird thing. Like, I do think that we're kind of like rats running in cages.
Yeah.
All of us, me, we're running in these cages. And we think, oh, I can't stop it. But then if you stop it sometimes and you just do something, you kind of, it replenishes you and you go, right. Going to see a movie in a movie theater. That's great. I love that,
No. And I mean, it's one of those things where, especially, and if you have that drive to be a storyteller, you won't stop looking to find stories.
Yeah.
You'll keep digging and you'll keep digging. And I mean, I even have a personal story. Like, I love The Human Condition. Just came out on Blu-ray. Like, fantastic. It's 9 hours. You try to talk to somebody about a 9-hour film, their eyes glaze over and they can't think of it. But then I just plopped them in front of it and they were transfixed.
Yes, great. Right. But see, and I do, right. So that I almost don't blame the individual. It's more like the society. It's like, is just incoming scuds all the time. Like, it's like there's stuff happening all the time. They've got these, the computers have these whole algorithms, or phones have these algorithms to distract us, because eyes on things sell things, right? So that's the whole idea, right? Is don't have anyone linger on anything. But So I agree with you. I think that actually, I think that there's a desire, and it goes beyond advertising. I think these companies, it's always like the tail wagging the dog. Like I think that you and I and others, even kids, really want to have stories told to them. We just have to, the middlemen are trying to make money. So they're trying to figure out on the outside how to monetize this thing. And so they're all trying to market and compete for airspace.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you just can't get
No.
lost in that either.
Yeah. No, I know. It's just, let's see where it all settles, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think it's a little, I think you were right in the beginning when you said there are more ways for films like this to get seen, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But then people have to be a little bit discerning. Like, are people still going to eat sushi when they can get McDonald's burgers on every corner? I would guess they would, you know?
Fingers and toes crossed, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this is a silly question, but it's something I always like to ask. Can you think back in time and like, is there a moment or sort of a movie in your life that you saw where sort of the light bulb went off for you? And it's like, okay, I got to do this.
That's interesting. Well, you know, I used to sneak into a movie theater when I was a kid. I grew up outside of Boston in a place called Somerville. And I used to go to a place called the Brattle Square Theater. There's a couple of them. There's Orson Welles Theater, you know, it's a college town kind of obviously. And I used to sneak in the back and I used to go by myself to see movies a lot. I'd see like The Fistful of Dollars. I'd see the Clint Eastwood movies and stuff, which I loved. But I'll never forget, like when I think it was Seven Samurai, where all of us, I was alone watching, and actually a guy sat down next to me, some pervert, and was trying to molest me or something. When I was 12, it was like a nightmare. But I hope he wasn't influencing this. Like, oh, I got to do this, you know. But I was watching Seven Samurai, and I was so transposed to like, you know, feudal Japan, and I was so invested in these guys, and I was so engaged with them that I think that was the first time that I said, like, it just became clear to me that this was a way to communicate that connected. Like I wasn't good at school. I was dyslexic. I didn't, you know, spelling bees. I was always at the end of the line. I all of a sudden this medium, there was nothing missing there. It was just like, there was no effort for me to engage. And I think that, you know, some musicians are like that. I couldn't play a musical instrument, so that wasn't my thing, but cinema immediately connected. It was seamless for me. And I knew this was what I wanted to do. This is what, almost less that what I wanted to do, but this was me. This was my way of thinking. This was my portal into communication, is the best way of putting it.
Well, you know what? I love that you say that, because you and I have a similar experience. I saw Ron when I was 8 years old on the big screen, and I didn't understand a word, but I knew exactly what they were saying.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's right. Isn't that this? I think that's probably one of the most amazing things about, you know, Sam Fuller would say motion pictures, is that it really does transcend culture. I mean, you know, neorealism, like that was another one that got me, like just watching Fellini's like Nights of Cabiria or La Strada. Like I remember just being a little kid and just going off on this journey, like just this journey. And I got to say, adding to the black and white thing, is that I think that, you know, Buñuel said this, that he dreams in black and white. And I don't know if that's exactly how I dream, but I don't generally remember colors in dreams. I remember there's something about the tonality of black and white that is like you're experiencing a dream when you watch it. Like when you watch La Strada or Seven Samurai, it's almost like you're dreaming, for me. And I like that artifice that you know, 8K, 4K, whatever the hell K people are talking about. I don't need to see every pore on someone's face.
Exactly.
You know. Anyway, so yeah.
All right. Well, just to put a bow on this, I mean, because for me, after watching this film, it felt like one of those things where, like, I would almost pull it out as an example of like very humanistic storytelling. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, when it comes to cinema, when it comes to film, when it comes to storytelling, it's about people getting to know about other people. And I'm curious, for you, as not only a filmmaker, but as a educator and a champion of film, as it were, because at the very least you're a fan of film.
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
How do you sort of describe the work that you try to do?
You know, like I agree with you. I think it's sometimes, you know, I mean, I get hurt a little bit by the criticism, but sometimes I feel that people feel like I'm on the edge of I don't feel I am, but people have called me sentimental, too cool for school kind of people, and I feel that
Fuck
like,
'em.
yeah, fuck them. It's like calling Van Morrison, sentimental, or Billie Holiday sentimental.
Right.
It's like, give me a fucking break. Like, but I do get that sometimes, but I do go for broke because it's kind of like, I do think it's human. I'm really caught up in human stories. I'm really caught up in the struggles and the challenges. Like, people look at this movie a lot of times and they say, oh, it's a hard, it's a sad story. There's a lot of difficult stuff in it for the kid. But actually, I kind of look at it like a celebration,
Yeah,
a
totally.
celebration of youth, of the, of going through shit and coming out the other end. Like, yeah, life's challenging, but it's also an incredible celebration. And so, yes, I do actually, if I were, if I kicked the bucket tomorrow and you called me a humanist, that would be the highest honor,
Well, I hope you don't kick the bucket tomorrow, I love this film, and I mean, I look forward to not just telling other people about it, but putting it on my shelf one day next to like a Cassavetes box set, just to be like, how do I, when people ask me about filmmaking, just pull it out and go watch this.
Well,
Because
I really appreciate that because something, it is filmmaking, and that's the other thing is I don't run from the making, like Buster Keaton. Like, I'm influenced by Buster Keaton. I love Buster Keaton, for instance, because he was into the machine, the mechanics of filmmaking, and part of the beauty of this medium, like, I'm looking at your painting, part of the beauty of any medium is the actual instrument.
Yeah.
And not running from the instrument, not trying to polish out, rub out all the bumps in the instrument, but to use the instrument, to use the medium, the grain, the way, the mechanics of filmmaking, I think are part of what make it beautiful. And you shouldn't you shouldn't try to polish them out or rub them out. It's more like celebrate them and engage them, because we're not entering reality. We're entering a dream. We're entering something that is a voice of an author. So I appreciate that a lot. That's
well, and I mean, I even love that you mentioned Buster Keaton, because I mean, if you look at a lot of the films that he did and people like Harold Lloyd and Chaplin, I mean, there's such innovative stuff that they've done storytelling wise, that these films, while they may get dismissed by the grander scheme of things and in pop culture, they have such inherent value, and it's important to sort of remember them and pay homage to them.
Yeah, put them. I say put them in a time capsule and send them into outer space. I mean, that is the best of cinema. Like Buster Keaton standing there when a building falls over him, is no CGI can ever get that thrill. Really nice talking to you. I hope we meet up in Toronto or New York or sometime.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you again for the time, man. This was a lot of fun.
All right, take it easy.
All right, cheers.
Bye-bye. Yep.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.